Travis Wayne Goodsell, back from my run. I did a 30-minute run, 2 miles, 30 minutes. I think I'm ready to move on to the 3rd mile. Wow. Met a cute girl during this morning's run. Never seen her out before. She's most likely jailbait. But at my age, I can't tell anymore. I have about 10 minutes before I have to deal with another program. So let's see how far I can get before I have to deal with that. And we'll see if I have to stop this video and continue. In the video I just posted, previous to this one, I talked about first cause. As Mormons, we are taught in primary the song, "Choose the right, let the consequences follow." And obviously it goes both ways. If you choose the wrong, the consequences will also follow. That's why it's important to understand the Mormon gospel doctrinal principle, precept, whichever word you understand, in regards to the first act. If you recognize the Sermon on the Mount with Jesus, he's talking about if someone, your enemy, smites you on your right cheek, turn to him the other one, the left one. Well, if you have ever done an example to see how it works, a person uses their right hand. They can't smite someone with a fist on the other person's right cheek. You have to turn it in order to hit the right cheek. So when Jesus is saying turn the left cheek, he's allowing the person to use their right hand and hit you first. See, because that's the principle that is being taught here for Mormons in regards to choosing the right, not just as a response to somebody's action against you, but also being a first actor. And so you don't want to do what is wrong. You want to do what is right. You want to be on the right side of history. Because as Jesus was trying to point out, you now have a lawsuit against that enemy if they follow through and actually hit you. Not just slap you on the cheek to taunt you. And that's what is needing to be understood in today's cultural society. If you notice, with George Floyd, was he the first actor? We don't know the initial cause, but we do see the video of George being subdued. He is now in custody. But now the police officer places his knee on the neck of George when he's in custody already. So now we got excessive force in play now. The police officer is choosing the wrong in how to act against a man in custody. The other 3 officers are also seen helping the police officer. They are aiding and abetting. They also are choosing the wrong. And so what we now have are riots across the nation. And thank you, Utahns who defied curfew. because we'll cover that. George Floyd's execution was the first cause. Everybody needs to understand that. What the police officers did was excessive force. He was in custody. That's it. You got him. So now you pick him up, you put him in the car, you take him to the station, you book him at the jail. Not complicated. Police do it all the time. And unfortunately, with George Floyd, police also do this on a regular basis, using excessive force. And so what happened with the riots? What you witnessed as I was watching the various news stations covering this, I witnessed as the reporters, the press, journalists, live at the scenes were getting shot, were getting tear gassed, were getting arrested by the police. Is that justified? Were the press choosing the wrong by just videotaping what was going on? Yeah, no. The police continue, despite the police being the first cause of wrongdoing, the police continue to support the wrongdoing of the first cause, and now are going after the press, as well as the people who were initially peacefully protesting. But guess what? They decided to come in full military gear, armed for battle against we the people who were initially protesting peacefully. And so the protesters had to respond with self-defense. And so police officers then had to escalate. All because the police ignored the first act. And they ignored the first act so that they could justify their wrongdoing. As the perpetuation of wrongdoing escalated by the police. So here in Utah, it started out a little more violent. Not violent, I shouldn't say violent. Shame on me. Destructive. Violent is when it's human on human assaults. But the protesters came prepared. They were expecting the Utah police to respond in like manner as the rest of the nation's police. So they brought milk to handle any tear gas that the Utah police might use. They never used tear gas, from what I understand. But the police did come in military force. They brought their big military cars, their tanks, and they came out with shields, batons, and the face shields. That was a military presence. That was a show of force. And right away, yeah, you're going to have an escalation. Governor Herbert called it a de-escalation. No. BS. But ABC4 News Utah covered the police officers again choosing the wrong by being the first actors to assault an unarmed elderly man with a cane. They can't claim that, oh, well, we were under attack and we didn't know who was who, and so we just, we're defending ourselves. No, police officers can't claim that. 41 Utahns were arrested that night. All 41 need to plead self-defense. Do not give in to the police threat and plead guilty to lesser charges so that you can get back out. Go all the way, plead self-defense. It would be nice if the ACLU would step up and say, hey, we'll do it pro bono for all of you guys. That's not likely to happen. I'm going to have to stop here, and we'll cover some other examples of first actors who were bad because they wanted to justify their other responses.
Understand. I think most of us agree that what happened in Minneapolis was despicable. And we have instances of that happening periodically around the country, and that's not, something that we support. At the same time, we honor the ability for people to assemble and to issue their complaints and address the government and peaceful protesting. But unfortunately, what I've seen in the last few hours is that's gone from a peaceful protest to just criminal behavior. I think we need to call it what it is, criminal behavior where people are looking to riot, to loot, to create violence, and that's not acceptable.
I've got it set up on the Movie Maker, and so I just showed you the clip of Governor Herbert. Notice, and go back to it if you need to, notice Governor Herbert acknowledges the first response, or the first act, and declares it deplorable. But what does he miss? Governor Herbert says, oh, it happens other places in America and in Minneapolis. What does he ignore? Which state does he ignore? Governor Herbert of Utah? Exactly. He missed Utah as also being a first act source for corruption by police, by government, by businesses. He is purposely ignoring his state and him as a bad faith actor, someone who has chosen the wrong. And therefore, because he has done this, he now justifies bringing in the National Guard, calling the protesters as violent, and that they've chosen the wrong. Now, what is a proportionate response to a cop who murders a citizen who is subdued and in custody? Murders. There's no self-defense granted for the officer. He has got the man in custody, and then he executes him. What is the proportionate response that should be given to that officer? Yeah, the death penalty. First-degree murder at a minimum. And so, this is what Herbert is not wanting to acknowledge is going on in his own state. Because in Utah, we never have our police shoot an unarmed black man, do we? I'm not going to put in the clip, but there was a famous one not too long ago. You know, in that case, the officer said, "Oh, I saw a knife, so I shot him." There was no knife. And then you have Sim Gill, Sean Reyes, they just look the other way. We'll let these guys get away with it. They're cops. You know, we gotta have the people fear the cops. If we show any sign of weakness, any sign of corruption, then the system just falls apart. That's how they justify choosing the wrong. And so, from the Book of Mormon, Mormons, Naaman ignores the first act of wrongdoing on his part, doesn't he? He doesn't believe his dad, refuses to cooperate, and as a result, because he's the firstborn, birthright blessing son, his position of privilege justifies him in beating the hell out of Nephi and wanting him murdered. And as Nephi flees for his life, Laman and all generations following pursue the Nephi and the Nephites to murder them, because they purposely ignore their first act of wickedness. And that's what we're seeing here, is an escalation in America as Trump he's going to put the military on our streets. We are not going to stop the protests, and we shouldn't. We need to stand for America. We need to stand up for our rights to life, liberty, and property. And Governor Herbert chose to ignore that. He said, hey, there are proper procedures of filing lawsuits when you have a wrong that needs to be redressed. You catch that? We're going to cover another example of such a Utahn who did just that, and what happened to him. I'll give you a hint, it's me. And Governor Herbert with the coronavirus. Again, I'll include the clip here, so I'll stop this video, put in the clip, and continue on with the next segment, which will be Nelson. But with coronavirus, remember when Utah got their first case of coronavirus? We took in the Utahn from the cruise liner and brought him to the Intermountain Medical Health Care Center. And I remember doing the video, the first case of coronavirus in Utah. It's here. It's spreading. Because what happened? The people who brought that person to Utah and the Utah doctors and nurses did not protect themselves from the virus. And thus it spread. And now it's gotten worse in Utah. We've had 5 days in a row of record-breaking new cases. Governor Herbert can't fudge the numbers anymore. And I told you guys this was going to happen, that there would be a situation where Governor Herbert will not be able to contain this by controlling what numbers get released to us. And sure enough, the last 5 days, as we had a heat wave even. Remember Trump said it was just going to disappear in the summertime? It's summertime now with the heat wave, and it's an outbreak. So summer does not stop it. But Herbert opened up businesses on the anniversary of the Illuminati on May 1st, and then downgraded Utah, and then during the day of the protest downgraded us even more, as we are on the second day of reporting of the outbreaks. They downgraded West Valley City here, and a couple other places. I think even Salt Lake City. The time for people to stay home and stay safe, that was the slogan Herbert used in the beginning, where there was not as many cases. Now we have an outbreak 5 days running. It's worse than when we started, when we stayed home, stayed safe. Now when we need to stay home, stay safe, he's saying, hey, go out and infect more people. So who's the first cause? Remember this, with Governor Herbert, he was slow to respond, and now he's exposing Utahns to further injury with the virus. So let's cover the clip.
Although most of the state is in the low risk or yellow phase, the rising case numbers and transmission rates show that we are not out of danger yet.
So even though the news is still claiming we're in yellow, because Herbert downgraded us to yellow, if you notice on the national news channels, they show a coronavirus map, color-coded, depending on the level of cases in each state. Yesterday's numbers placed Utah at the next higher level of 10,000 plus cases. We surpassed 10,000 cases in Utah yesterday. We are now a darker color. We are no longer the yellow color that I was seeing used for 300 plus cases. I hope the news, at least MSNBC, upgrades their map to show that Utah has now passed the next level and color codes it appropriately. I sent them all the facts on that from the site, the government site. So hopefully we'll see that change. But Nelson is a medical doctor. Nelson is the leader of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So does that justify him being excused from being a first actor of wrongdoing? Can Nelson choose the wrong? Because he's the leader of the church, he speaks for God, he's a medical doctor. Does that excuse him from his actions and being accountable for his actions, where he can justify retaliation because, well, he's not the first cause, is he? No, he doesn't get that luxury. Nobody gets that luxury. Lehman thought he got the luxury. Herbert thinks he gets the luxury. Trump, obviously, he claims it before he even commits the act. And so, yeah, that's the sign of corrupt people. They refuse to acknowledge their own corruption. Just like Governor Herbert in the video, refused to acknowledge that there is the same problem in Utah. And so he then justified what he did to Utahns. And like I said, all those 41 that were arrested, according to the news, you need to plead not guilty and self-defense. Don't let them bully you into pleading guilty. They win and get away with it if you plead guilty. Don't let them do that. I'll get to my story in a minute. And so Nelson, medical doctor, acknowledges that in his video to Mormons. But then he says, but I'm also a man of faith. Uh-oh. He just pushed aside science and replaced it with his version of what's going to be religious faith. Now, if you understand true faith in the Mormon doctrine, Alma chapter 32, starting in verse 28, it is science-based. So what the hell is Nelson, the leader of the Mormon church, doing, setting aside science for what he calls faith? Because in the Mormon church, science is faith. The process of faith leading to truth. And Nelson just created a new doctrine in that video saying that, nope, We just need faith, and it'll magically cure coronavirus. And we're going to hold a fast that'll magically cure coronavirus, as Mormons have to then pay fast offerings to the church. This is the lighting, I guess, not the blurriness. And so again, Nelson is choosing the wrong and ignoring that he is choosing the wrong, using his interpretation of doctrine to justify choosing the wrong. He misinterpreted doctrine to justify his wrongful act. And what was his wrongful act? Deceiving Mormons into trusting him, into following him. Because Nelson slowly closed the church as coronaviruses were proportional with the closing that he made. And notice it's for your safety. I want you to be safe. We're complying with the laws of the land. It's not me, it's on them. They determine what happens to us. And no, you're a religious leader. The people are looking at you to say, help us, protect us. Amos 3:7. Surely the Lord God will do nothing save he shall reveal his secrets unto his servants the prophets. It's mistranslated in English. It's mistranslated in Hebrew even. But nonetheless, Mormons all understand the point. And Nelson also is guilty of the first act violation. The Mormon murders are on his hands. He's responsible for the deaths of Mormons in Utah and throughout the world. If Mormons listen to him, trusting him, because he failed. He failed us. Because we're not out of this. Coronavirus is worse than ever in Utah, and it's on the rise 5 days in a row now, remember? But Nelson, just like Herbert, is letting people go back out and socialize, commune. And that shouldn't be happening, because the virus, the threat, is not over, and it's just escalating. And so, if they're going to pay attention, because they're going to blame you, that you didn't use safety measures and precautions, and you're going to go, wait a minute, you told me it was safe now. You opened things up. You said I can go out. Yeah, see? They neglect the first act that they committed. And then we'll blame you instead because you trusted them. And then, of course, we can bring up the little story of the girl and the snake. Girl gets to a riverbed, sees a snake there, and says, hey, can you carry me across the river? Oh, you're a snake? Come on. Serious? I want to get across the river. Yeah, blah, blah. Okay. Takes him across the river, bites her. And then the snake says, you knew who I was when you picked me up. We know Governor Herbert. We know Russell M. Nelson. We know Trump. But they are the first actors. Because if we were to liken the snake unto a human being rather than an animal, because animals work on a different system of processes. They're not like humans. And so it's incorrect to assume that humans are animals. And so the "Who Moved My Cheese" is satanic literature because it refers to human beings who are slaves to businesses as rats, rodents, mice. But if you understand that the snake was using deceptive words to fool the girl, and if you put on sheep's clothing on the snake, remember? Wolves in sheep's clothing. Then the girl no longer recognizes the threat and trusts that there will be no harm to come to her. That's what Governor Herbert is. That's what Nelson is. They are in positions of authority and trust in the community. And as such, people are supposed to be able to follow their orders and their guidance during a crisis. And they've exposed themselves as wolves in sheep's clothing, as a snake in a rabbit's clothing, ferret's clothing. But Mormons and Utahns are not the cause, even though they're the ones who are now threatening my life because they're spreading the virus around. If I go out into public, even though I'm wearing a mask and wearing gloves, those aren't going to protect me. It's to protect you. So if you are not wearing the mask and gloves, you're going to get me exposed. And I may have already been exposed. It's weird, but I won't get into it. I seem to have immunity, but I keep getting it over and over again, so I keep getting immunity over and over again. It's weird. I won't get into it. But, I still don't understand why nobody else here is dead. My tenants are at high risk. My other neighbors, not tenants. I'm not the landlord. The landlord's trying to have me murdered, again, for the same situation. She refuses to accept that she was the first cause. She claims innocence, and so she justifies attacking me and trying to have me murdered. That's why I have these air conditioning units that's causing disruption on the volume, or the voice, or the background noise. It's the same pattern of behavior for all corrupt people. And so, now we can get to me. I did what Governor Herbert says we're supposed to do when a wrong has been committed against us, as other Utahns have done. And in Utah, you can't do it. They won't let you. It's a crime to protest. It's a crime to redress grievances. In 2008, I went to the Capitol building. I went to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I went to the courthouse and filed a grievance. They turned around, refused to accept the grievance as a grievance, called it a weapon of mass destruction, had me arrested as a terrorist threat. I was disappeared for 6 years. There was no trial. I never pled guilty. I was going to plead innocence. Not guilty, Your Honor. Never got that chance either. Because my legal defenders, who are freely assigned to me by the state, because the Constitution says we got to give them to you. We didn't need to give you quality people. Yeah, they turned on me. They said, "Oh, Travis, you're in the wrong. You can't petition for a redress of grievances. Oh, you're in the wrong. You need to stand down." Well, the reason is because I was suing the church. How dare I? Am I the first actor against the church? That's what everybody thought, because they ignored the first act. Let me put in that picture for you, and I will show you who was the first actor in my particular case. This is what the church submitted as evidence in the case against me in 2008, that I was therefore a terrorist threat. Notice, it began in 1998. Notice that they created the troublemaker file on me. And what was it for? What was I a troublemaker for? Pay close attention. It's for telling them that I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, that Joseph Smith is right, and I am wanting more information from the church. Who's the real troublemaker? The church is the real troublemaker because they ignored the first act. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints believes that their presidents of the church are prophets, seers, revelators, and, though never spoken, understood as translators. In 1998, I am now in Utah. My wife abandoned me. Not sure if the first one was before or after I was officially divorced. She got it without my permission or say-so in the case, and it was finalized on her birthday in August 6th, 1998. But I moved to Utah in 1996. And so I had to redo my research because she took it when she abandoned the marriage, fled the country, took our kids, of which I told you about the dream I had of Clayton as a boy that I got to have custody of. He's much older than my ability to have custody of him now. So, but it was an interesting dream. Nonetheless, that's the church's claim to me being the first cause of wrongdoing. That I'm a translator when they, as presidents of the church, are the real translators, and that I can't be the true translator, therefore I'm the false translator, therefore I'm like Mark Hoffman, who's going to be making bombs. If you notice the case in 2008, they nonetheless did that too. They tried to make that claim. I mean, after all, they called my lawsuit, my petition, filing a petition for redress of grievances, as a weapon of mass destruction. Yeah. So, I know full well the Mormon doctrine of first cause, first act. I have been victimized by it in Utah at all levels in society. From my neighbors, my family, the church, the leadership of the church, police, government. I know this topic because I've experienced it and produced the fruits. The faith process, the scientific methodology. And so Mormons, when you get to a situation of a he said, she said even, don't listen to what they're telling you. Find out what happened first. Did the wife assume and then lash out based on her assumption? And then the man retaliates with self-defense. Was it proportional? This is what you need to identify. Don't pay attention to the anger or the tears or any other cover-up. Pay attention and look for the first cause. Because the first cause will help you to judge righteously. Because that's also Mormon doctrine, to judge righteously. We don't believe in not judging. If you didn't know that, now you do. And that's why you need to look for the first cause. Because the first cause will reveal who was right and who was wrong. And as I've gone over with you, Trump, Governor Herbert, Russell M. Nelson, the police, they're all in the wrong. They are the cause of the problem, claiming exemption because of their position of authority. So, in my case, that's why I filed the lawsuit, was for this first cause. The church lashed out in 1998 against one of their own because one of their own said, hey, Joseph Smith was a translator after all. It's true. And they responded disproportionately. And it escalated over time. And I was forced to have to do this lawsuit in the federal courts. And technically, according to the laws of the court procedure for civil filings, as I've gone over with you, I won. But because of this first cause doctrine, the clerks don't want to acknowledge the first cause. The judges have been resistant to acknowledge the first cause. All committing crimes on behalf of the church to defend the church from my lawsuit. And so Judge Oberg must give order for me. She can't give order otherwise because the laws won't let her. So if she does order otherwise, she has committed an act of treason because she's siding with the church over the American government, of whom she took an oath to the government for her position as a judge. The oath of office to faithfully execute the laws of the land and the Constitution. She has no choice except to commit treason. I won. So let's get this done and over with so that I can create a city of Zion for people to flee to. Because remember, Joseph Smith prophesied of that. He was murdered. And the church that took over, well, one of the branches that took over, claimed that every change they were making was the first cause by Joseph Smith. And they just lied. They were the first cause, but they purposely ignored it to make Joseph the first cause. False witnesses. So that's the doctrine of first cause. First act. You need to choose the right. If you're the first one to make the choice to act, you need to act in the right. You can't premeditatively plan how you're going to commit crime, violating other people's rights. You can't counteract by denying the first act that you caused, just so that you can justify covering up your crimes. Remember? Section 121, many are called, but few are chosen. Why are they not chosen? When you begin to cover up your sins. And a whole long list. You lost your authority. It's not just for priesthood holders. It's a general principle in society. The police lost their authority. Governor Herbert lost his authority. Russell M. Nelson lost his authority. So the question is, Mormons, do you honestly believe the Mormon doctrine? Or you are going to participate in ignoring the first cause?